Nathen reacts to Real Injun, the Cree filmmaker Neil Diamond's insightful look into First Nations people in cinema. How does media influence our ideas?
In many ways. I mean, when you see something, it makes you think. And that I agree with. It's how it's supposed to be.
What kinds of questions do we need to ask about representation in the media?
How many people all these days are getting offended for the sake of being offended as opposed to actually being offended by it? This is a topic I was both dreading and kind of hoping to get to talk about. In the modern era, people are getting offended by stuff that they have absolutely no right to be offended about. Look at just an example off the top of my head. The whole old debacle between the African American people and African and American Indian, well, you know what I mean.
People of color.
People of color, and Apu from The Simpsons. This guy was getting offended because Apu is subservient and speaks in a ridiculous accent. Yet, those who took the time to actually watch through the series, who understand Apu as a character, not just a face and color, got to know him as someone who was popular with the ladies, who enjoys building furniture, then taking the time to talk about where it should be placed in a room. Actual quotes from the actual series. And this guy is getting offended by this. Absolutely genius, well-educated, popular with the ladies. Not just some guy who runs a gas station or
Quickie Mart.
the Quickie Mart. He doesn't just run it, he owns it. He's not just, thank you very much, come again. Yes, he says that, but
He's more than that.
exactly. And then you have these people here in this video. They didn't seem to be getting offended by it, were they?
No, they were laughing about it. They thought it was hilarious.
So then you have people like this, who, well, I will admit, yes, there are some portrayals of people in the past, people of color, people without color, that can be offensive. Let's use The Simpsons as an example. Let's take Apu, the supposedly racist character, right? Now, as people have watched the series and taken the time to know him, we see him very differently from someone who just sees a single episode and gets upset. They see him as an entirely two-dimensional character. But in reality, he's actually the most fully fledged and least offensive character in that entire series. You've got an incompetent fat police officer who loves donuts, who's lazy beyond belief, dumb as a doorknob. You've got Homer J. Simpson, the main character. Dumb, fat,
Lazy.
a drunk, and Americans aren't getting offended by this. They're the people laughing at him. They're the ones animating him doing this stupid stuff. So, where do we need to draw the line in the sand? Who's getting offended for the right reason? These people, the First Nations, and even in modern media, with the rise of power of Trump, he straight up said that us First Nations as a people do not exist. And yet, we don't exist as Hollywood sees us, yes, but we exist still. I may have very diluted blood, yet I am still First Nations, and I am proud of that. I look at this and don't get offended.
Does it make you think, though? Like, when I watch this, and
I laugh.
I find it funny on the one side, but on the other side, I also look at it and I think, you know, how many generations of people were influenced with the belief that all Indians ride horses, all Indians wear headdresses, all Indians are savage, all Indians are, it stereotyped them into this role that they didn't belong in.
Stereotypes will always exist. They'll never stop. Look at the stereotype for most First Nations in the modern era. Drunk, lazy, stupid, violent, short-tempered. Yet how many are actually like that? How many actual First Nations are the complete opposite of that? Stereotypes will never stop. But the First Nations people have been able to look at these portrayals, these mixed and goofy carnival mirrors of their culture, and laugh about it. They aren't getting offended. They are not screaming, "Take this down, or I will sue you."
They're actually using it as a re-education instead of being offended by it. They're taking ownership of it, and showing what they really are.
And they don't stop it from being distributed. They end up distributing it themselves.
It's the whole idea of empowerment, right? Taking something that was meant to be derogatory and remaking it as your own so that you take power over that derogatory thing.
Terms that I would personally use when chatting with one of my friends, they pretty much pulled a magical cylinder. In Yu-Gi-Oh! A trap card that makes an opponent's attack turn around and smack them instead.
Yes.
They're making it go from, or in modern meme terms, or in the English language, it's like someone throwing an insult at you and you simply respond with, "No, you." That was huge for years. Not just online, but in actual culture. This is what it means to me. Not some derogatory, some insult, some slap in the face, but actually making it different and using it to their advantage.
Taking its power away.
I wouldn't even say that. Yes, they're taking their power, but less taking it away and more redirecting it. Hence the magical cylinder. It's not stopping it entirely. Instead, it's repositioning it. Using it as less of a means to harm as much as a means to teach, to educate. And even now, First Nations people are still being portrayed incorrectly, yet we as First Nations don't seem to be getting offended. And it's because we know it's a wrong mirror. It's a carnival mirror. It changes and distorts, and yet
it doesn't represent you.
First Nations are more than what we see in culture and pop culture. We First Nations are people. We have history, we have culture. And we don't let the stereotypes given to us shape us.